The world was not prepared. One announcement, just one, was all it took to send shock waves across continents. Strait closed. Two words that brought nations to a standstill. Ships halted. Markets collapsed. Politicians scrambled. Panic spread faster than any storm. In that moment, the global system, which always seemed so powerful, suddenly looked fragile. The lines of supply, trade, and influence that held economies together were broken like threads in the wind. But while the world looked outward in confusion, a few began looking inward, and they saw something the headlines couldn't explain. This wasn't just about geopolitics or economics. This was a sign, a reminder, a moment that peeled back the illusion of control and reminded humanity how quickly power can slip away. For those who reflect, this wasn't just a crisis, it was a wake-up call. Because long before the world built its ports and pipelines, the Qur'an had already spoken of days like these. Days when arrogance would meet weakness, when comfort would turn to chaos, and when hearts would tremble, not because of what the world lost, but because of what it ignored. Sorry, yet mighty gate of passage had become more than a geographical point. It had become a symbol of the world's dependence, pride, and delusion. Its closure revealed how humanity placed its trust in systems it couldn't control. People thought they were advanced, secure, invincible. But a single shutdown triggered fear that no satellite, army, or negotiation could calm. And in that panic, a deeper truth surfaced. The world may have built machines, but it has forgotten meaning. It may have reached the stars, but it's lost its grounding. And in the middle of this chaos, one question rose louder than the headlines. What now? For believers, the answer is not new, it's timeless. Return, reflect, remember. This is not the first time the world has been shaken, and it won't be the last. But every disruption is a divine invitation to pause, to realign, to find the path back to purpose. The closure of Strait might be the world's alarm, but for the believer, it is a sign from Allah, a moment to look not just at closed waters, but at closed hearts. Not just at delayed ships, but at delayed prayers. Not just at falling economies, but at rising heedlessness. We were warned, not to scare us, but to prepare us. The Quran doesn't just speak of end times, it speaks of human nature, of recurring patterns, of arrogance followed by collapse, of mercy after warning. So when the world panics, the believer reflects. When the world fears the loss of trade, the believer fears the loss of Tawhid. This moment, this closure, this global shaking, it's not random. It's a call to all of us. A call to remember that no gate remains open forever except the gate of repentance. No passage stays protected forever except the path to Allah. And no system can offer true security except the system of faith. So while the world scrambles to reopen the Strait, let us use this moment to reopen something greater, our hearts, our purpose, our connection with the one who never closes his door. Because maybe, just maybe, the closing of one passage is Allah's mercy, calling us to the only path that never collapses, the path of truth. When the news broke that the Strait had closed, the world didn't just pause, it panicked. Within minutes, headlines flooded every screen. Leaders called emergency meetings and global markets trembled. Trade routes that once powered the world's economy stood silent. Ports were stacked, oil prices spiked, and entire regions held their breath. But behind the numbers, the charts and the media noise, something far deeper was unfolding. Something few were brave enough to admit. The world, despite all its technology and pride, had no real backup plan. And that vulnerability was louder than any siren. People had always believed that modern systems were unbreakable. The internet, satellites, global trade, military alliances, all these were supposed to guarantee stability. But the closure of one narrow waterway flipped the illusion on its head. Countries that once boasted of their independence suddenly realized how deeply dependent they were, not just on oil or shipping lanes, but on systems built by human hands and driven by human greed. The truth hit hard. We are not as in control as we like to think. For those who reflect, the message is clear. The closure of Strait wasn't just a geopolitical event. It was a divine reminder. Allah doesn't shake the earth without meaning. He doesn't allow panic to rise without purpose. What we witnessed was more than a disruption of ships. It was a disruption of arrogance. A reminder that no matter how powerful nations may seem, they are powerless when Allah wills. One blockage was enough to show how quickly the world can bend. But still, most of the world responded with fear, anger, and confusion. Few responded with reflection. Few paused to ask, what is Allah telling us through this? Because the truth is, we've built a world that moves fast but forgets deeply. We chase progress but ignore purpose. And when one passage closes, we don't think of the Creator, we just try to fix the system. But believers must look deeper. This is not just about fuel and freight. It's about hearts. It's about waking up. Because maybe, just maybe, Allah is showing us that when the world blocks your path, it's time to turn toward the only one who never closes his doors. As the world scrambled to deal with the fallout of the Strait's closure, a deeper truth began to rise from beneath the chaos. A truth the world didn't want to face. For decades, nations built alliances, economic systems, and global networks that promised progress, wealth, and power. Yet with the shutting of a single waterway, all of it trembled. Ships anchored in silence, trade halted, panic spread like wildfire. And in that moment of stillness, the world was forced to confront the illusion it had wrapped itself in. That humanity was invincible, untouchable, too advanced to ever fall apart. But the closure exposed everything. It showed how fragile the system really was, how quickly the balance could tip, and how helpless even the strongest countries could become. The panic wasn't just about the economy, it was about ego. For years, leaders had built their identities on control and dominance. They promised their people safety through strength. But this event proved that control is an illusion. The systems we trust, money, fuel, shipping, digital networks, all rely on tiny, often ignored links. And when one of those links breaks, the whole structure begins to collapse. That's not a coincidence, that's a message. Allah reminds us in the Qur'an that He tests nations with fear, hunger, loss of wealth, and life, not to harm them, but to humble them. And this event, whether seen through the lens of politics or prophecy, is a test. The believer doesn't just see a closed waterway, he sees a mirror being held up to the world, reflecting its arrogance, its heedlessness, and its distance from the Creator. This is not just about Strait, this is about every heart that forgot where true power lies. For the Ummah, this is a moment to reflect, not with fear, but with faith. While the world looks for political answers, we must return to spiritual clarity. This closure is not the problem. Forgetting Allah is. If the world trembles because one gate shuts, what will it do when the gates of mercy begin to close? That is the real question. And the answer is not in panic, it is in prostration, in turning back, in recognizing that only the one who controls the sea, the sky, and the soul can truly open paths of peace. While media channels flashed breaking news and analysts debated what went wrong, the world remained blind to a deeper reality. The closure of Strait was treated as a political emergency, a trade issue, a diplomatic challenge. But in the eyes of those who see through the lens of the Qur'an, it was a sign, a divine signal that the foundations the world had built its pride upon were cracking. Because what shook the world wasn't just the loss of access. It was the sudden reminder that all human power has limits, and that no matter how advanced we think we are, one command from Allah can bring everything to a halt. The Quran has already spoken of days when chaos will descend, when nations will fall into confusion, and when the arrogant will be silenced by events they cannot control. Verses describe oceans boiling, skies breaking, and people running in fear, yet not recognizing that these are not random disasters, but responses to a world that has turned its back on truth. The panic surrounding the Strait is just a taste, a small preview of how easily this dunya can unravel when it is built on pride instead of purpose. In the comfort of global trade and technology, people forgot who controls movement. They thought it was man, machines, money. But the truth is, it has always been Allah. He is Al-Muqaddim and Al-Muakhir, the one who brings forward and the one who delays. When He wills, a ship moves. When He wills, an empire stops. The closure of one waterway by His command is a reminder that even oceans obey Him, and so must we. The believer doesn't just read these signs, he connects them to his own life. Just like the Strait was blocked, maybe our own hearts are blocked. Just like the world paused in fear, maybe we too need to pause and realign. This isn't just about trade lanes, it's about Taba. Because when a path in the world closes, it's often a signal to open a path back to Allah. And if we miss that signal, we risk falling into the same panic that now grips the world. But if we respond with faith, sujood, and sincerity, then even in chaos, we'll find clarity. Even in crisis, we'll find mercy. As the chaos deepened and leaders scrambled for answers, the reality became even clearer. This wasn't just a crisis of trade, but a crisis of truth. The world had become so obsessed with speed, power, and progress that it forgot how to pause. It forgot how to reflect. It forgot who is in control. When the Strait closed, it wasn't just a disruption to global commerce. It was a disruption to the illusion that mankind is self-sufficient. People had been living as if tomorrow was guaranteed, as if the systems they built were eternal, as if nothing could stop the wheel from turning. But in one moment, everything stopped, and the world stood still in fear. This wasn't the first sign. The truth is, signs had been appearing long before this closure. Signs in nature, in the economy and society. Floods, droughts, war, confusion, loss of direction, moral collapse. But the world didn't see them as signs. It saw them as obstacles. Instead of asking, "What is Allah telling us?" people asked, "How can we fix it?" But sometimes the fix is not in action, it's in awareness, not in policies, but in prayer. The closure of the Strait is just another sign, louder than most, calling us back to what we were created for. And the loudest message in this moment is this: your systems are not your saviors. Your wealth is not your protection. Your leaders are not your guardians. When Allah wills, a path you've depended on for decades can close in a heartbeat. What happens then? Where do you turn? That's the question that separates the fearful from the faithful. The ones who only see the surface will drown in panic, but the ones who look deeper will understand. This is not a punishment, it's an opportunity to return to Allah before the real storm arrives. For the believers, this is not the time to fear, it's the time to lead. With wisdom, with calm, with clarity. We were given guidance for times like these. The Qur'an doesn't just prepare us for prayer, It prepares us for panic. And in every ayah, Allah reminds us when the world shakes, hold firmly to Him. When doors close, run to the one who never closes, His mercy. When people are lost, be the one who shines light. Not from your opinions, but from His words, because that is the only path that remains open when everything else shuts down. While the world drowned in headlines and speculation, one group was meant to rise, not with panic, but with purpose. The Ummah, the believers, the people who hold the Qur'an in their hearts and the words of the Prophet in their lives. This moment wasn't just a test for the world. It was a call for the Muslim Ummah to wake up, to remember who we are. Because if we, the people of La ilaha illallah, do not see the signs and respond with clarity, then who will? If we don't reflect when Allah shakes the earth, then what makes us different from those who are lost in the noise? The closure of the Strait is not just a global disruption, it's a personal reminder. A reminder that the world is not stable, that empires fall, that borders change, that trade collapses, and yet the Qur'an remains. The prayer still calls. The Ummah still has a mission. But that mission can't be fulfilled if we are asleep, divided, or distracted. This is a time to return, not to arguments, but to unity, not to fear, but to faith, not to social media noise, but to sincere dua and action. The Prophet said, "Help your brother, whether he is an oppressor or oppressed." And right now, the world is oppressing itself by ignoring the signs of Allah, and we must respond, not with anger, but with dawah. With truth, with light, the believer sees beyond the headlines. We understand that Allah doesn't just test nations with earthquakes and wars. He tests them with confusion, with fear, with sudden loss. And when the world shakes, it is our duty to be the calm in the storm, to remind people that every hardship is a chance to turn back. Every disruption is a door to repentance. And every closure in the dunya is a signal to open your heart to the akhirah. This is our moment, not to go viral, but to go deeper. Not to make noise, but to make impact. If the Ummah responds to this with reflection and reconnection to Allah, then we fulfill our role as witnesses to the truth. But if we respond like the rest of the world, with fear and forgetfulness, then we miss the very purpose we were created for. So let the world panic, but let the believers prepare. Let the world look for solutions, but let us return to Sujood. Because the strongest response to chaos is a believer who knows that Allah never loses control. In the middle of the confusion, while governments planned and experts debated, there was one truth that no one wanted to face. This isn't the end, but it could be the beginning of something greater. The closure of the Strait may have looked like a sudden event, but in reality it was a reflection of what has been building for years. A world that has distanced itself from God, that has placed faith in systems and leaders instead of the Creator, was always heading toward collapse. The signs were all around us, but most were too busy, too distracted, too confident to pay attention. And so when one gateway closed, the panic wasn't just about trade. It was about the heart realizing how lost it had become. But Allah is Al-Halim, the most forbearing. He gives signs not to destroy, but to guide. He shakes the world not to punish it blindly, but to wake it up. The closure of the Strait is a small taste of how fragile our world really is. And if we're wise, we will not waste this moment in fear. We will use it to return, to ask ourselves, what path have we truly been following? And more importantly, what path are we on now? For those with insight, this is the perfect time to realign, to realize that true safety was never in global systems. never in borders, never in wealth, but always in the remembrance of Allah. It's a moment to look at the bigger picture and ask ourselves what matters most. If one waterway can cause such chaos, what about the day when the heavens split, when the graves are turned, when the trumpet is blown? That is the ultimate closure, the one we're all heading toward. And today is a gift to prepare for that day. We must stop seeing these events as accidents. They are divine messages written in the language of reality. And if we want peace, not just worldly peace, but peace of the heart, we must respond to these messages with humility, with action, with a return to the one who never fails. The closure of a gate in the sea may have shaken the world, but it's meant to open a gate within us. The gate of reflection, the gate of repentance, the gate of readiness. Because in a world full of panic, the greatest strength is not found in power, it's found in prostration. In a world that trembles at the closing of a single gate, the believer stands firm, not because he has all the answers, but because he knows where to turn. The closure of the Strait may have sparked fear, confusion, and chaos across the globe. But for those who reflect, it was something far more meaningful. It was a reminder that this life is temporary, that systems fail, and that security built on anything other than Allah is always fragile. The real panic isn't when a sea route closes. It's when hearts remain closed to the truth. This moment is not about headlines, it's about the soul. It's about realizing how small we are and how vast Allah's mercy still is. Every shock in this world is an opportunity to wake up before the final call. So let the world scramble for control. We, as believers, must scramble for sincerity. Let the world seek answers from experts. We must seek forgiveness from the Most High. If the world is panicking over a gate that has closed, it's time we run toward the only gate that's always open, Allah's mercy. Thank you for watching this powerful journey in reflection. If this message reached your heart, don't let it stop with you. Share it, reflect on it, live by it, because the signs will keep coming, and the wise will always respond, not with fear, but with faith. Stay alert, stay grounded, and may your heart always remain open to the truth. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. See you in the next video.